Hi, so this presentation is concerning managing spitting and biting in service users in children and adult settings such as education, care and custody sectors. And my name's Joanne Caffrey and I own the training company Total Train, and I'm an expert witness for managing challenging behaviour and use of force. So the objective of this short presentation is to highlight some issues about the risks posed to staff, looking at issues about how to manage down challenging behaviour, and looking at adaptation of restraint positions or personal protective equipment, and also the first aid responses. So if we look at some of the risks then, one risk is bloodborne virus exposure, such as hepatitis B or C or HIV, and another risk is about acidic burn to the eye from the saliva. The immediate management following a potential exposure depends not on the virus but on the route of infection, and that was from April 2012 by the Faculty of Forensic and Legal Medicine, managing bloodborne virus exposure. Note though, although this presentation is concerning biting and spitting predominantly, service providers should also be aware of splashes, scratches and needle stick injuries, which will be subject of an additional information presentation from us. One case to bring to your attention is £110,000 compensation payout to a member of staff who basically got spat at and the spit went in their eye and they ended up losing part of their eyesight. The courts awarded £110,000 to the members of staff based on several issues. One of those was about the lack of any record of the fact that this was a known service user who spat. There was no assessment of risk in relation to the fact that they spat, how staff then should adapt practices for dealing with this person, or about the risks involved with spit if it did get into their eyes. So staff were unaware of what they should do if spit went into their eye. So that was inadequate knowledge amongst the staff and the lack of suitable and sufficient risk assessment. Also then there was inadequate first aid provision available for staff to clean out their eye if they did get spit in it, and there was no safe system of work adopted in relation to dealing with spitters or biters. If we look at this document, Health and Safety Guidance, Advisory Committee on Dangerous Pathogens, Protection Against Bloodborne Infections in the Workplace, HIV and Hepatitis, there's some extractions here that I've taken from that document. Occupational exposure in the healthcare setting usually occurs as a result of needle stick injury, injury with other contaminated sharp instruments, or as a result of contamination of the mucous membranes. So by mucous membranes we mean an eyes, nose and mouth. Occupational acquisition of HBV, otherwise known as hepatitis B, has been significantly reduced due to the availability of effective vaccine for the virus. Different workplaces that I'm involved with, different cultures about whether staff have hepatitis B vaccinations, and some staff are completely unaware of this information. So if you're a manager, do consider about whether to bring that information to your staff. Also, designated first aiders in any occupational setting might be at increased risk, but also consider here staff involved in the use of force or dealing with challenging behaviour service users who may then spit, bite, scratch, etc. The main legislation of relevance to controlling the risk of exposure to bloodborne virus at work is the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health regulations of 2002, otherwise known as COSH regulations. In the COSH hierarchy of control measures, vaccination as protection against infection at work is a last line of defence, and other controls should be available. However, for workers potentially exposed to bloodborne virus, such as healthcare workers, vaccination is an appropriate additional measure. So if we're looking at immediate first aid then for your staff to utilise for spitting or biting, issues with biting, where there's been penetration of the skin, and this is penetration by the slightest amount, so if there's the slightest dot of blood, we've got full penetration that's happened to the immune system. Or contamination of an open wound, encourage bleeding from the site. Wash the wound with soap and warm running water, but do not scrub or apply antiseptics, and then cover with a suitable protector such as a plaster. It's essential then that the person seeks advice from a healthcare professional. In relation to spitting, mucous membranes such as the eyes should be irrigated copiously with sterile water. So as much sterile water as you can get in their eyes there to try and get as much of the saliva out as you can. If the recipient is wearing contact lenses, they should then be removed and the eyes irrigated again. And again, for the spitting and the biting, a healthcare professional should be contacted for advice in either circumstance. And that advice there is based upon the Faculty of Forensic and Legal Medicine of 2012 guidance. So then if we're looking at your behaviour plans, it's an anticipated risk that any service user could bite or spit staff. Staff should be aware of basic first aid and personal safety responses to this risk. Physical intervention techniques should be considered for dealing with service users who have potential to bite or spit and for whom it's necessary and unavoidable to restrain them. This is in addition to any personal protective equipment such as glasses and bite-resistant clothing. Standard restraint courses don't cover things such as biters and spitters, so it may be additional training that you need for this. And it's never ever safe to force items into the mouth of a service user who bites or spits during an intervention, as this carries a high risk of asphyxia, respiratory arrest and death. Added risks include medical and disabilities of the person, such as if the person's got asthma or Down syndrome, for example, because Down syndrome people often have additional problems with the respiratory and also with the cardiac system. Consider proactive therapeutic assessments and interventions to identify the person who bites or spits, why they're doing this, but also person-centered methods for dealing with them. And this is something that my company can help you with. So what can my company Total Train help you in your workplace? Well, what we can do is we can combine the legal, therapeutic and medical models for safe and effective care. We can conduct your assessments of risk for both your staff and the service user. And we can also look at doing the therapeutic and sensor integration assessments and plans. We can also work with you on your behaviour assessments and plans and personalise for the demographics training of the staff and as well as the service user. And we can also provide ongoing therapeutic work with the service user based on any previous reports and assessments that you've had. So ultimately, if you want more information, contact me direct. My direct email is joanne_caffrey@sky.com, or you can contact my office email, which is totaltrain@sky.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you very much.